Shalom. Welcome to our High Love Ministry. It's Pastor Kerry Battle. And it's good that you all are with us today. Thank y'all for you all being with us. Amen. Hallelujah. Today our Torah class is going to be called Mikketz. Mikketz means at the end. Amen. So we're going to be talking about Joseph down in Jerusalem, down in Egypt, the famine, and also his brothers coming and him revealing himself to him today. So we're going to get started with a word of prayer. Hallelujah. So let's pray. Father, we thank you this morning. We glorify you. Thank you for your mercy and your loving kindness, Yah. Yah, I ask you to open my understanding of your word. Help me to teach. Yah, I pray that you lead and guide us into all truth. Convict of sin, Yah. We praise you and glorify you for being our strength, for being our redeemer, for being everything that we need. And I ask you, Yah, just to hold us. Yah, those who are listening, those who are tuning in, help them to learn, help us to be clear in what we convey. And Yah, we just continue to ask you to help build our faith in you. So we praise you, we trust you. In Yeshua's name, hallelujah. Amen. So, this morning our Torah portion is called Mikketz. It means at the end. So we believe at the end of Joseph coming out of the hardship, the trials that he'd been through. And of course, we know his brothers didn't like him. So by them not liking him, when he was coming, they planned to kill him. While they planned to kill him, Reuben tries to intervene. And while Reuben tries to intervene, his suggestion was to throw Joseph in a well. Well, of course, we know when he was thrown in the well. He was sold into slavery to Egypt. He goes into Egypt. He's in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife wants to have sex with Joseph. After he continues to refuse, she lies and says he tries to rape her. But then he goes to prison. He's in prison for a number of years. He's actually in the captain of the guard's house. And in comes the baker and the cupbearer. And Joseph, they both have dreams. Joseph interprets their dreams, tells the baker that he's going to be restored back to his position. Tells the cupbearer he's going to be restored back to his position, and tells the baker that he's going to die. So of course those came to pass. Joseph tells the cupbearer, don't forget me, remember me. But we all know that the cupbearer forgot Joseph until a couple of years later. A couple of years later, Pharaoh has a dream. And that's what we start at. So we're gonna begin at Genesis 41, verse 1. We're gonna begin it. We're gonna explain it. So I'm gonna read. Genesis 41, verse 1 says, "At the end of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile River, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they began feeding in swamp grass. After them, there came up out of the river 7 more cows, miserable looking and lean, and they stood by the other cows at the edge of the river. Then the miserable looking and lean cows ate up the 7 sleek fat cows. At this point, Pharaoh woke up, but he went to sleep again and dreamt a second time. 7 full ripe ears of grain grew out of a single stalk. After them, 7 ears, thin, blasted by the east wind, sprang up, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 full ripe ears. Then Pharaoh woke up and realized it had been a dream. In the morning, he found himself so upset that he summoned all the magicians of Egypt and all his wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one there could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, 'Today reminds me of something wherein I am at fault.' Pharaoh was angry with his officials and put me in the prison of the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker. One night both I and he had dreams, and each man's dream had his own meaning. There was with us a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us. He interpreted each man's dream individually, and it came about as he interpreted to us. I was restored to my office, and he was hanged. Then Pharaoh summoned Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, changed his clothes, and came in to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I've heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answers Pharaoh, it isn't in me, but God will give Pharaoh an answer that will set his mind at peace. Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, I stood at the edge of the river, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they began feeding in the swamp grass. After them, there came up out of the river 7 more cows, poor, miserable, looking and lean. And I've never seen such bad-looking cows in all the land of Egypt. Then the lean and miserable-looking cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But after they had eaten them up, one couldn't tell that they had eaten them, because they were as miserable-looking as before. At this point I woke up, but I dreamed again and saw 7 full ripe ears of grain growing up out of a single stalk. And after them 7 ears thin and blasted by the east wind sprang up. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 ripe ears. I told this to the musicians, but none of them could explain it to me. Yosef said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaohs are the same. God has told Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are grains of 7 years. The dreams are the same. Likewise, the 7 lean and miserable-looking cows that came up after them are 7 years, and also the 7 empty ears blessed by the east wind. There will be 7 years of famine. This is what I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. Here it is. There will be 7 years of abundance throughout the whole land of Egypt. But afterwards, there will come 7 years of famine, and Egypt will forget all the abundance. The famine will consume the land, and the abundance will not be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, because it would truly be terrible. Why was the dream done for Pharaoh? Because the matter has been fixed by God, and God will shortly cause it to happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should look for a man, both discreet and wise, to put in charge over the land of Egypt. Pharaoh should do this, and he should appoint supervisors over the land to receive a 20% tax on the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should gather all the food produced during these good years coming up, and set aside grain under the supervision of Pharaoh to be for food in the cities, and they should store it. This will be the land's food supply for 7 years of famine that would come over the land of Egypt, so that the land would not perish as a result of the famine. The proposal seemed good both to Pharaoh and to all his officials. And Pharaoh said to his officials, can we find anyone else like him? The Spirit of God lives in him. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You will be in charge of my household. All my people will be ruled by what you say. Only when I rule from my throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, here, I place you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh took a signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and had him clothed in fine linen with a gold chain around his neck, and had him ride in his second-best chariot. And they cried before him, bow down. Thus he placed him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I, Pharaoh, decree that without your approval, no one is to raise his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph by the name Zaphnath-Paneah, and gave him as a wife Osnat, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Then Joseph went out through all the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Then he left Pharaoh's presence and traveled through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the earth brought forth heaps of produce. He collected all the food of these 7 years in the land of Egypt and stored it in the cities. The food grown in the fields outside each city is stored in that city. Joseph stored grain in quantities, like the sands of the seashore, so much that they stopped counting because it was beyond measure. The 2 sons were born to Joseph before the year of famine came. Osnat, the daughter of Pharaoh, priest of On, bore them to him. Yosef called the firstborn Manasseh. Manasseh means causing to forget. Because God has caused me to forget all the troubles I suffered in the land and at the hands of my family. The second he called Ephraim, fruit, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortune. The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said. There were famine in all the lands throughout the land of Egypt. There was food. When the whole land of Egypt started feeling the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Yosef and do what he tells you." The famine was over all the earth. But then Yosef opened all the storehouses and sold food to the Egyptians, since the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all countries came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe throughout the earth. Amen. So Pharaoh's dream. Now Joseph now was 30 years old. He was 30 years old by the time he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh had a dream, and the dreams disturbed him because they were so real. So he called his musicians, who was really his brain trust. And the magicians, they were really part of the mystery of Babylon religion. That was a big part of Egyptian life. So when you read the book of Jasher, you got some of these magicians coming and telling Pharaoh all kind of crazy dreams that just didn't make no sense. These were wise men. They were intellectuals. They were smart men, but they could not interpret Pharaoh's dreams. So now Pharaoh is angry. So now the cupbearer speaks up and says, hey, I got something I'm gonna fall about. I met this young man named Joseph in the prison. He interpreted my dream. He interpreted the cupbearer, the baker's dream, and what he said came to pass. He told me that I was going to be restored my position. I am. He told the baker he was going to die, and he did. He died. So what he says is true. So then all of a sudden Pharaoh calls for Joseph. And when Joseph gets before Pharaoh, one thing that we can see is that Pharaoh tells Joseph, that he can interpret dreams and what he can do. But Joseph responds to Pharaoh and says that he can't interpret dreams. He admits that, I can't interpret the dreams, but it has to be Yah who interprets, or God who interprets the dreams. And the dreams that Pharaoh had was prophetic dreams. They were dreams that came to Pharaoh from the Most High. The first dream we know was cows. 7 was healthy and 7 was sickly. And the second dream we know was corn. 7 healthy, 7 sickly. And anytime you see it said the corn was blasted by an east wind. So anytime you see that word east, it's spiritual. So Yah was going to cause the famine. He had spoken. There was something he was going to do. He was going to cause the famine. So he was preparing Pharaoh. But what he was also doing is preparing Joseph for the word that he had given him, maybe about 20-some years earlier, about his family bowing to him, about his mother and father bowing to him, about him having authority. So Joseph interprets the dream and tells Pharaoh, you're going to have 7 abundant years, then you're going to have 7 years of famine. He says 20% of all the produce is to be stored. Start storing it, store it for the next 7 years, and they did so much of it that they couldn't even count anymore. And the people, they was not thrilled because they couldn't enjoy their abundance, but they was going to go into famine. Now, one thing that we can see about Pharaoh was Pharaoh had faith. Faith comes by hearing by the word of God. You can only have faith or trust in God based on what he tells you, based on his word, based on what he's saying to you, and how you show you have faith is by responding to the word of God, right? So Joseph tells Pharaoh about this dream. He tells Pharaoh about the dream, tell him what's going to happen. He tells him that this is what God says is going to happen. And Pharaoh's response was that he put Joseph over the land of Egypt to begin to prepare for this famine. So he had to have faith. He had to be able to trust in God and trust in that word. It wasn't necessarily Joseph, what Joseph was saying, but it was the word that God had told Joseph. So his faith was displayed by what he did, by him putting Joseph, he says this in verse 38. It says, verse 37 says the proposal seemed good, both to Pharaoh and to all his officials. And Pharaoh said to his officials, "Can we find anyone else like him? The Spirit of God lives in him." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You will be in charge of my household. All my people will be ruled by what you say. Only when I rule for my house will I be greater than you." So because of Joseph interpreting the dream, that Yah using Joseph to interpret the dream, Pharaoh responded. So that shows his faith. And Joseph was telling them, our time of plenty is now. So you need to begin to start restoring this, because ahead lies great trials. Now the principle in this is that we know the truth and better heed to it. So when you hear the truth, when Yah speaks to you, and you hear the truth, you have a responsibility to take heed to the truth, to respond to it. Don't hear the truth and say, "Well, I know it's true, but I don't know." No, there's a lack of faith. Nor the word says in the New Testament, it says, "To him that know the truth and don't do it, to him is a sin." So when you hear the truth and when you know the truth, you respond to it. If it's a sin, the word says anything done outside of your faith or outside of your trust is what? A sin. When you don't move, when you don't respond to what y'all are saying. So a principle that we can learn from that was that we can know the truth and take heed to it. So of course we know that Pharaoh chose Joseph to run the nation. Pharaoh chose Joseph to run the nation, but it was actually Yah, and it's just fulfilled. It's just still, you can still see the word coming to pass that Yah had given to Abraham when he says, "I'm going to cause your descendants to go down into Egypt." So you still can see the word coming to pass. And then Pharaoh changed Joseph's name, or he gives him an Egyptian name. Let me say that. And his name was Zephaniah Paneh, which means he who is called life in Egyptian. That's what it means. And so a name indicates a reputational status. So he who is called life. So Joseph responding to Pharaoh, telling Pharaoh about what's going to happen, what's going to transpire, and what to do to preserve the people. Because the thing is this, you got 7 years of abundance, but then you're going to have 7 years of famine. And when people are hungry and don't have anything to eat, they perish. They die. So Joseph, with the wisdom that Yah had given him, had given Pharaoh a plan, an idea of what to do. So people can live. So his name meant he who is called life in Egyptian. Zephaniah Paneh. Amen. So anyway, that's a good thing. So then he gives him a wife. Listen to this, because he said that God is with him. Now the Egyptians dealt with some of the mystery Babylon religion. They dealt with numerous gods. They dealt with a lot of gods. So what Pharaoh did, because of his idol worship and dealing with other gods, he gave Joseph a wife named Asna. And she's the daughter of a high priest of On. She's the daughter of a high priest of On. And On was the temple of the sun god Ra. So he gave Joseph the daughter of the high priest of On. And On was the temple of the sun god. So he gave him a daughter of a false god. On is also called Heliopolis. So Joseph had 2 sons. The sons were Ephraim and Manasseh. And these children that Joseph had were Egyptian children, and it was mixed. But most of the time, from my understanding, is that the children take their identity from their mother. So if the mother was, a Hebrew, then the child would be a Hebrew. So the mother, their mother was an Egyptian. So their children, his children was more so Egyptian. So then of course we know that Yaakov adopted them. Now my take on that is this: is that when Yaakov adopted Ephraim and Manasseh, he made them his children. It's just like, this is just my take. When Yah called Abraham was not a born Hebrew, but he crossed over. He was the first Hebrew. Then you had Yaakov. Abraham had a son named Ishmael, who was born from him, who wasn't a Hebrew. Then he had a son named Isaac, who was the first Hebrew that was born to Abraham from Sarah. But then Isaac married Rivkah or Rebekah. She had two sons. One name was Esau, one name was Jacob. But they came from the same mother and father. But Esau wasn't a Hebrew. Jacob was a Hebrew. So it was Yah's selection, his dividing, his electing. So I'm thinking that when Jacob adopted them and he made them into Hebrew, they crossed over. Because that's what it means. Iparu, it means to cross over. So that's just my take on that. So now we see Joseph sees Egypt as a friend, and he sees Egypt as a replacement home. So now here it is, a famine strikes. The famine strikes. And Joseph was smart, because when the famine strikes, the store grain was sold back to the people. They collected all this grain. Pharaoh sent just throughout all of Egypt. They had storehouses everywhere. And then when the people begin to run out of food, they begin to sell the grain back to the people. And then when the people ran out of money, they sold themselves into bond servanthood to Pharaoh for food. So Pharaoh benefited from it. He increased just simply from Joseph. So now we see that Jacob is still in Canaan. So let's go. We're going to go to chapter 43. We're going to go to Jacob is still in Canaan. So 43 says this: but the famine was severe in the land. So when they had eaten up the grain which they brought out of Egypt, their father said to them, 42? I'm sorry. 42. Now Yaakov saw that there was grain in Egypt. So Yaakov said to his sons, why are you staring at each other? Look, he said, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us from them, so that we can stay alive and not die. Thus Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, except for Benjamin, Joseph's brother. Yaakov did not send him with his brothers because he was afraid that something might happen to him. The sons of Israel came to buy along with the others that came, since the famine extended to the land of Canaan. Joseph was governor over the land. It was he who sold to all the people of the land. Now when Joseph's brothers came and prostrated themselves before him on the ground, Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them. He acted toward them as if he were a stranger and spoke harshly with them. He asked them, where are you from? And they answered, from the land of Canaan, to buy food. So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Remembering the dreams he had about them, Joseph said to them, you are spies. You've come to spot our country's weaknesses. No, my lord, they replied. Your servants have come to buy food. Now, we're all the sons of one man, with upright men. Your servants aren't spies. No, he said to them, you come to spy out our country's weaknesses. They said, we, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest stayed with our father, and another and another one is gone, just as I said. So replied Joseph, you are spies. Here's how you can prove you're not lying as Pharaoh lives. You will not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother. Meanwhile, you will be kept in custody. This will prove whether there is any truth in what you say. Otherwise, as Pharaoh lives, you are certainly spies. Then he put all of them together in prison for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, do what I say and stay alive, for I fear God. If you are upright men, let one of your brothers remain incarcerated in the prison you're being kept in, while you're being kept in while you go and carry grain back to relieve the famine in your homes. But bring your youngest brother to me. In this way, your statements will be verified and you won't die. So they did it. They said to each other, we are in fact guilty concerning our brother. He is in distress and pleaded with us. We saw it and wouldn't listen. That's why this distress has come upon us now. So Reuben answered them, didn't I tell you, don't wrong the boy? But you wouldn't hear of it. Now comes the recompense for his blood. They had no idea that Joseph understood them, since an interpreter was translating for them. Joseph turned away from them and wept. Then he returned and spoke to them. He took Shimon from among them and put him in prison before their eyes. Next he ordered the containers to be filled with grain, that every man's money be put back in their packs, and that they be given provision for the journey. When these things had been done for him, they loaded their grain on a donkey and departed. But at camp that night, as one of them opened his pack to give fodder to his donkey, he noticed his money. There it was, just inside the pack. He said to his brothers, my money has been restored. There it is, right in my pack. At that, their hearts sank. They turned, trembling to one another, and said, what is this that God has done to us? They returned to Yaakov, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them. The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us. He took us for spies in his country. We said to him, we are upright men, we're not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is gone, and the youngest stayed with our father in the land of Canaan. But the man, the Lord of the house, said to us, here is how I would know that you are upright men. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take grain to relieve the famine in your homes, and go on your way. But bring your youngest brother to me. By this I would know that you aren't spies, but are upright men. Then I will return your brother to you, and you will do business in the land. Next, as they emptied their packs, there was each man's money in his pack. And when they and their father saw their bags of money, they became afraid. Yaakov, their father, said to them, you have robbed me of my children. Joseph is gone, Shimon is gone, and now you're taking Benjamin away. It all falls on me. So Reuben said to his father, if I don't bring him back to you, you can kill my own 2 sons. Put him in my care. I will return him to you. But he replied, my son will not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he alone is left. If anything were to happen to him while traveling with you, you would bring my gray hair down to Sheol with grief. Man. And listen to this. Here's something that came to pass. The first thing that came to pass is this. That when the brothers go into the land, into the land, they went to go buy the grain. It says Joseph was the governor of all land, right? It says now, in verse 6, it says, now when Joseph's brothers came and prostrated themselves before him on the ground, he saw his brothers and recognized them. So, the dream that he had, one of them had come to pass. Because what were they doing?
Bowing.
They bowed down to him. Who was in the field? Bundling up sheaves. My sheaves stood upright. And y'all sheaves came and y'all bowed before me. Now the brothers got angry, got upset. Oh yeah, we'll submit to you all right. But Joseph had a dream. He had a word from the Most High. And when you look at Joseph's patterns, the Most High explained to Joseph his dreams after he had his dreams. So now we see this come to pass. Now listen to this. Verse 9 says this, when they bowed down to him, they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. Right? So verse 9 says this, remembering the dreams he had about them. Then he says to them, you are spies. You come to spy out our country witness. But he recognized them. They didn't recognize him. And when they bowed to him, he remembered the dreams. It came to pass exactly as he said. We can see the brothers are still we can see that the brothers are still kind of dealing with the issue of selling Joseph, because this is the first time they bring out. Man, God is getting us because of what we did to Joseph. So now, Israel is the tool that Yahweh used to bring about his divine plan. Israel is. We are the tool that Yahweh used to bring about his divine plans. Jacob's sons, Yaakov was sitting there, that was famine in the land. They wasn't doing anything. So Yaakov had to respond to them and tell them. He says this. He says in verse 1. So now Yaakov saw that there was grain in Egypt. So Yaakov said to his sons, why are you staring at each other? Look, he said, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some food for us from there, so we can stay alive and not die. So Yaakov's sons weren't doing anything to solve the food problem. They just staring at each other. So Yaakov had to send them. Now listen, Yaakov chose Israel. He chose Israel, but he didn't choose Israel because they were great men. That's not why he chose them. He chose them because of his divine plan for their life, for Israel, because of his covenant promise with Abraham. He just chose Abraham out of his compassion, out of his grace. Had nothing to do with their personalities. Nothing at all. Had nothing to do with their actions. It was just because of him himself why he chose them. So now, when Yaakov sends them, he did not allow Benjamin to go along with them, but Benjamin stayed at home. And by this time, the famine was going on. Joseph is distributing food, so it was common knowledge that Joseph was in control of the food program. So the boys had to go. His sons got to go to Joseph. And about 20 years have passed now since he was sold by his brothers. So this is about 20 years later. He was a boy when he left. He was a boy. He was about 17 years old when he left. He's about 30 years old now. So he's been gone about 13 years. Well, excuse me. He's been gone 20 years. He was 17 when he had left. He was a mature man. So now his brothers couldn't even recognize him. They could recognize him because he dressed and he behaved like, the Hebrews were shepherds. So they would have beards. And they looked like shepherds. Versus you got the Egyptians who were not shepherds, and they probably was well groomed, shaven, or maybe had like a little strip of hair down, gold to this or something down here, but not him at all. But he recognized his brothers. And beginning to see your dream or beginning to see the word or the vision that Yah gives you come to pass is awesome. And no matter how long the time was, Yosef believed in the dream. He knew his dream was true. And he finally see his brothers bow before him. And he recognized them. So Yah shows him, he confirms it. Even if the brothers couldn't understand or the brothers didn't recognize it, Joseph recognized his brothers. And then, of course, his brothers bowed down. Then he accused them of being spies. Y'all are spies. Y'all are spies. And now we're not spies. No, that's not why. No, that's not what's going on. So then they're helpless now before Joseph. They're bowed down and they're helpless before this ruler. So Joseph began to ask them questions. He asked him, is his father and brother still living? You want to know, so he finds out. So he asked him questions. He's getting news from him. Kind of leaving his heart too. He finds out that his brother's still alive, his dad's still alive. That's probably kind of a relief. And then he put his brothers, in jail for 3 days, so he can deal with them apart from all the others, to come for grain. So now listen here. He talks to them. He deals with them. Reuben tries to absolve himself. But Simeon is kept hostage. But so let's go down. He says he put him in jail for 3 days. Just to deal with him. And then Reuben tried to absolve himself. From situation when let's go to verse 21. It says in 42. It says they said to each other, "We are in fact guilty concerning our brother." And Reuben tried to say, "No, not me." Mm-hmm. So Reuben said he was in distress and pleaded with us. We saw it and wouldn't listen. That's why this distress has come upon us. This is what the brothers said. They talking to each other. But then Reuben responds to them and said, "Didn't I tell you don't wrong the boy? But you wouldn't hear of it. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." So Reuben trying to get out of it. Now it ain't my fault, it's y'all. You know what I'm saying? Y'all the ones, I told y'all don't mess with it. So he tries to absolve himself, and which ain't gonna work because he just is guilty. Mm-hmm. And so Joseph sends them back, but he keeps Simeon as a prisoner. And then they put the money paid for the grain, they put it back into their sacks. So as they're going back, and one of them begins to get ready to feed his donkey, boom, his money is back in his pack. So his heart sinks. They tremble. Yeah. And so now they think that Yah is paying them back for that treachery that they did against Joseph all those years ago. And he paying us back. Man, we done messed up. We should have left him alone. They're feeling guilty. This 20 years that done passed, which shows you reap what you sow. Mm-hmm. Because you think you got away with something does not mean you got away with it. It comes back. It's on your mind. This is 20 years past. They go down to Egypt, and when they start seeing this trouble come upon their life, the first person they think about is Joseph, what they done to their brother. You can't hide it. And Yah has a way of bringing it out, bringing you to make you deal with what you did. He has a way, he does and he will, he brings his word to pass. His word is going to come to pass in your life regardless. In spite of what you think, in spite of how you feel, Yah's word is going to come to pass. His word can't return void. The brothers had to bow down, to Joseph, and also they had to give an account for what they've done. Listen, they sold their brother into slavery. They caused grief to their father. Told them, man, that y'all done found his coat. They took Joseph's coat off of him, get this coat in blood, And when they get rid of him, sell him, they go to their dad and say, man, we found, and this is the royal tunic that you gave to Joseph. Man, someone killed him. So all these years, Yaakov is thinking that his son is dead. And the brothers knew that they sold him. And they sold him in Egypt. And guess what? The very place they know they sold him at, guess where they at? They down there. And they really don't have a clue if he's dead or alive. But he's on their mind now. So Yah brings it back. So now, and then he tells them, I'm going to keep Simeon. And I'm going to keep Simeon, and then you go get your brother. And when you get your brother and bring him back, then I'll let y'all go. This is going to prove that y'all are not spies. And so Jacob refused to allow Simeon to go. He told him, man, y'all trying to kill me. Y'all trying to kill me. Y'all already had Joseph killed. Joseph gone. Now Simeon is gone. He a hostage. And you want Benjamin to go with you? No, y'all trying to kill me. I ain't gonna be able to do it. So it's a lot going on. So now, because the the offer, then Reuben speaks up. First thing that Reuben does is this: he offered the lives of his two children, and Jacob would not allow Benjamin to go to Egypt. Yes, ma'am.
And we said he did it without question.
Yeah, offered the lives of his two children, but that's just Reuben showing that he was not worth the first born rights.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you give your own children up? Give yourself up. So Reuben is just continuing to show that, you know, he's not worthy of being the firstborn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then the famine was terrible, and Jacob is paralyzed from indecision because they got to eat. If they don't have any food, they're going to die. Y'all want me to send Benjamin with y'all? He don't trust his sons. He don't trust them. You know, I sent Joseph to go with y'all. He come check on y'all. He dead. So Jacob don't trust him, and then Reuben don't hit the situation. He don't hit it at all by what he just did. You know, he just showed that he was not worth the firstborn right. I'm just gonna give you my sons, kill them, without a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's heavy. Cause I can't do that. I ain't gonna sit here and say, yeah, I'm ready for you to take me. You know, they're my kids. You know, I don't think I can handle that. So Reuben shows that, and Jacob don't trust his sons. But the famine is continuing. You know, and they run out of food. So it's a decision that has to be made. So let's go to 43. But the famine was severe in the land. So when they had eaten up the grain, which they brought out of Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." And Yehuda said to them, "The man expressly warned us." And the father said to go buy some more food. Judah said, "Man, the man has especially warned us. You will not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you would send your brother with us, we will go down. If you would send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you would not send him, we would not go down. For the man said to us, you would not see my face unless your brother is with you." And Israel said, "Why did you bring such trouble my way by telling the man you had another brother?" And they answered, "The man kept questioning us about ourselves and about our kinsmen. He asked, 'Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' And we answered according to the literal meaning of his question. How were we to know he would say, 'Bring your brother down'? We didn't know that. He asked us. You know, so Yehuda said to Israel, his father, "Send the boy with me, and we will make preparation and leave, so that we may stay alive and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I myself will guarantee for his safety. You can hold me responsible. If I fail to bring him to you and present him to your face, let me bear the blame forever. Except for our lengthy delay, we would have been there again by now." The father of Israel answered them, "If that's how it is, do this. Take in your containers some of the land's best products and bring the man a gift: some healing resin, a little honey, Aramaic gum, opium, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take twice the amount of money with you and return the money that came back with you in your packs. It could have been an oversight. Yes, and take your brother too, and get ready and go again to the man. And may El Shaddai give you favor in the man's sight, so that he will release you, your brothers, as well as Benjamin. As for me, if I must lose my children, lose them I will." The men took their gift, and they took twice the money with them and Benjamin, and then they prepared, went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw that Benjamin was with him, he said to his household manager, "Take the men inside, kill the animals, and prepare the meat. These men would dine with me at noon." The man did as Joseph ordered and brought the men into Joseph's house. Upon being ushered inside Joseph's house, the men became fearful. They said, "It's because of the money that was returned in our packs, the first time that we have been brought inside, so that he can use it as an excuse to attack us, take us as slaves, and seize our donkeys too." So they approached the manager of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. "Please, my lord, the first time we indeed came down to buy food, but when we got to the camp, we opened our packs, and there inside our packs was each man's money, full of the full amount. We brought it back with us. Moreover, we have brought back down other money to buy food. We have no idea who put the money in our packs." "Stop worrying," he replied. "Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father put treasure in your packs. As for your money, I was the one who received it." Then he brought Shimon out to them. The man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he provided fodder for their donkeys. Then they got their gift ready for Joseph's arrival at noon, for they had heard that they were going to eat a meal there. And when Joseph arrived home, they went in the house and presented him with the gifts they had brought with them. Then prostrated themselves before him on the ground. He said, "How he now that's the first dream. All 11 brothers, all of his brothers now bow before him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a full official dream coming to pass." He asked them how they were inquired. "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is well. Yes, he is alive," as they bowed in respect. He looked up and saw Benjamin, his brother, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your youngest brother, of whom you spoke?" And added, May God be good to you, my son." Then Joseph hurried out, because his feelings toward his brother were so strong that he wanted to cry. He went into his bedroom, and there he wept. Then he washed his face and came out, but controlled himself and gave the order to serve the meal. They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians included at the meal by themselves. Egyptians don't eat with the Hebrews because it is abhorrent to them. So they sat there facing him, and the firstborn in the place of honor, and the youngest in the last place. And the men expressed their amazement to each other. Each was given his servant there in front of him, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as large as any of theirs. So they drank and enjoyed themselves with him. So then the family continues. Israel and the clan are running out of food. So now we got Judah. We see Judah's character has changed. Seems like Judah was humble, by his experience that he had with Tamar, and what he had done, his sons, and how he got over. Then she was pregnant, so he was humble. So now this is what Judah did. Judah offered himself as a surety for the safe return of Benjamin. He put himself in place, and he would take on the responsibility. Now Judah probably saw that he was the one that was going to inherit, and he took on a leadership role, how he responded, how he carried himself. And Jacob felt, because of Judah's response, what he said, that he could trust Judah. So he relents, and he allows Benjamin to go. So they go. So now they get down there, they go inside the house. Joseph instructs his brother to dine with him, and he eat alone. And even the servants don't eat with the brothers, because it's abhorrent for Egyptians to eat with Hebrews, because shepherds were seen as low-class people to the Egyptians. The Hebrews were shepherds. The Egyptians were not, and the shepherds were seen as low-class people. So then we got each brother was seated in birth order. Reuben was in the place of honor, and Benjamin was given his 5 times as much as the others. So Benjamin was shown some favor, and he shows some little loyalty. You know, Benjamin's descendants will produce the first king of Israel. The first king of Israel was Saul. He was a Benjamite, from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, we see that Joseph sees his brothers. He has to go in the back. He cries, you know, and then he comes out and get himself together because he was able to see Benjamin. He hadn't seen, in years. You know, he still asks about his father. You know, is he still alive? Is he good? How are things going? And he brings him in to eat with him, and they eat. So we're gonna go to 44, and we're gonna try to tie ours together. So let's go to 44, 1 through 17. Then he ordered the manager of his household, fill the men's packs with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money just inside his pack, and put my goblet, the silver one, just inside the pack of the youngest, along with his grain money. He did what Joseph told him to do. At daybreak, the men were sent off with their donkeys, but before they were far from the city, Joseph said to his managers, "Up, go after the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the goblet my Lord drinks from? Indeed, the one he uses for divination. What you have done is evil." So he caught up with him and said these words to them. They replied, "Why does my Lord speak this way? Heaven forbid that we should do such a thing. Why, the money we found inside our packs we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. So how would we steal silver and gold from your Lord's house? Whichever one of us the goblet is found, let him be put to death, and the rest of us will be my Lord's slaves." And he replied, "Fine, let it be as you have said. Whichever one is found with will be my slave, but the rest of you will be blameless." Then he hurried to put his pack down on the ground, and each one opened his pack. He searched, starting with the oldest and ended with the youngest, and the goblet was found in the pack belonging to Benjamin. At this, they tore their clothes from grief. Then each man loaded up his donkey and returned to the city. Judah and his brothers arrived at Joseph's house. He was still there, and they fell down before him on the ground. Yosef said to them, How could you do such a thing? Don't you know that a man such as myself can learn the truth by divination?" Yehuda said, "There is nothing we can say to my Lord. How can we speak? There is no way we can clear ourselves. God has revealed your servant's guilt. So here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and also the one whose possession the cup was found." But he replied, "Heaven forbid that I should act in such a way. The man in whose possession the goblet was found be my slave. But as for you, go in peace to your father." So now, it's rough. It's rough. They've already ate. You know, the brothers are already dying with Joseph. You know, and Benjamin got 5 times more. You know, than his brother, which is a royal portion. You know, I already explained that the first king of Israel came from the tribe of Benjamin, who was Saul or Shaul. And then again, the bag of silver was placed back into the grain sacks, and now they go back and they see a cup. It's a cup. You know, Joseph put the cup, or a divining bowl. You know, it was actually a bowl instead of really a cup. And seers, because Joseph was a seer, he interpreted dreams. Seers used the bowl for divination, but it's unlikely that Joseph did that. More so that he probably kept it for appearance, because Joseph only worshipped one God, and he knew that Yah was the only one who could reveal certain things, and not he himself. But listen, the one thing that stands out to me is that death was the way of the brothers. It seemed like every time something happened, they want somebody to die. Somebody had to die. they want to kill somebody. Somebody got to go. They said, well, the one who has Joseph divining bowl in his sack should die. That's the first thing they said, they should die. If Benjamin had it. But at the same time, when it happened down, they killed all the males at Shechem for rape of down. They death. You know, they tried to kill Joseph. Death. Judah ordered Tamar killed. You know, because of fornication. You know, and he was the father. So it seemed like death was the way out. Let's kill everything. You know, and then of course when Benjamin, you know, was found with the bowl, their tune changed. Being humble, you know, we're guilty. You know, because Judah put himself on the line. Now, we're not going to get into that until next week. But just look at the story of Joseph, how Joseph came back, how his brothers came down to Egypt, and now he sees his brothers. His dreams are coming to pass. God revealed himself. And through the whole entire process, we see Joseph keeping his trust in the Most High. By acknowledging the Most High to interpret dreams. You know, he believed in his dream, he sees it come to pass. So we know that hindsight is 20/20, that Yah keeps his word. In spite of opposition, in spite of what goes on, he keeps his word. Amen?
Amen.
So we're going to go to 1Kings 3. We're going to 1Kings 3, verse 15 through 4:1. We're going to get Isaiah, we're going to get you to read 1Kings 3, verse 15 through 4:1. Let me know when you got it. You got it on page 351. Because Yah gives dreams. He gives dreams and he speaks through his dreams. And he gives you the understanding of what he says. And he brings it to pass in your life. You know, so we're going to see another case of a dream and how Yah did what he said through Solomon and proved it through a situation. So we're going to go to 1Kings 3, begin at verse 15 and read through 4, verse 1.
Shlomo awoke and found it had been a dream. But he went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the covenant of Adonai, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings. He also made a feast for all his servants. After this, there came to the king 2 women who were prostitutes. After presenting themselves to him, one of the women said, "My lord, I and this woman live in the same house, and when she was in the house, I gave birth to a baby. 3 days after I gave birth, this woman also gave birth. We were there together. There was no one else with us in the house except the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's child died because she rolled over on top of it. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from next to me, while your servant was sleeping, and put it in her arms, and she laid her dead child in my arms. When I awoke in the morning to feed my child from my breast, there it was, dead. But when I took a closer look in the morning, why, it wasn't my son at all, not the one I gave birth to." The other woman broke in, "No, the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." The first one said, "No, the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son."
Right.
This is how they spoke in the presence of the king. Then the king said, "This woman says, the living one is my son, your son is the dead one," while the other says, "No, the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." "Bring me a sword," said the king. They brought a sword to the king. The king said, "Cut the living child in 2. Give half to the one, and half to the other." At this, the woman to whom the living child belonged addressed the king, because she felt so strongly toward her son. "Oh, my lord, give her the living child. You mustn't kill it." But the other one said, "It will neither be yours nor mine. Divide it up." Then the king answered, "Give the living child to the first one. Don't kill it, because she is its mother." All Israel heard of the decision of the king had made, held the king in awe. For they saw that God's wisdom was in him, enabling him to render justice properly. King Shlomo was king over all Israel, and these were his high officials.
Amen. So now we see the story of Solomon had a dream. Solomon has a dream. God appears to him in a dream, asks him, what can he do for him? And Solomon said, I need wisdom. Now check something out. Yah speaks to Solomon. We see the word that Yah had given him about giving him wisdom. We see it come to pass. Based on what Yah had said. And that pattern we can also see, with Joseph. We can see it through Pharaoh. We can see it through the baker and the butler. We can see it even in Joseph's own personal life that Yah's word comes to pass. And this time we see it play out. So you got Solomon, in 1Kings, and you got the story of two prostitutes. The word prostitute is the Hebrew word zonel. It means prostitute, and two prostitute women. So zonel isha. The word isha means woman in Hebrew, and zonel means prostitute. So these two women were they lived together. In the same home. I don't know if it was a brothel or if it was just their house. When they did business, so they were prostitutes. And so at night they're sleeping. One of the women she rolled over on the infant, the baby, and suffocated it. She killed the baby. So now in the middle of the night she get up, she squished the dead baby with the live baby of the other woman. She get up, she go in and get his baby. They both claim the babies is theirs. One said, "It's my baby." I said, "No, it's my baby." She said, when I got to get ready to feed her, when I got to get ready to feed my baby, I looked a little closer. It was dead. It was dead. I looked a little closer and I realized the baby wasn't mine. But she got up in the middle of the night and she took my baby. And the woman said, "No." So they began to argue. Now we see Yah's wisdom, his word, comes to pass in Solomon's life. Because Solomon orders the baby to be divided with a sword, and each woman gets half. That don't even sound right, but guess what? Because, but he's dealing with their mind, their heart also. Because you will see who's the wicked one, who's the wise one. So the bitter woman says, well, that is fair. That neither woman winds up with a live child. Well, go ahead and just kill both of them then. That's fair. Mine dead, hers should be dead. It's actually, because she says, well, that's fair. And her heart was revealed. Because the other woman loved the child so much that she's willing to give up her own claim. That's fair. No, just go ahead and give her the baby. So the case solved. They saw right there, and Solomon gave the baby to the woman who only wanted it to live. So he saw. So Yah showed him Yah used that wisdom and revealed the heart of the woman whose baby it wasn't. And that was Yah. He brought his word to pass in Solomon, because that was a wise thing to think. That for Solomon to think, that of course the mother will want nothing but good things for the baby, and only want the best for the child. So he did that, and he found out who the true mother was, which is actually awesome. Amen. So we're gonna go to Acts 7. We're gonna read Acts 7, chapter 7, and we're gonna read verses 9 through 16. So that's amazing. So when Yah speaks into our lives and tell us certain things, it's important we pay attention and act upon it, because Solomon used faith. He didn't freak out. He didn't break down and say, oh man, I don't know how to handle this. This deep. I don't know. He had to solve the problem. And it was a difficult problem, such as the same as, may not have been to the magnitude of Pharaoh, having to feed a whole nation. You got a whole nation getting ready to go, into famine, and Joseph solved that problem. But look at the dilemma, the stress, even with the cupbearer and the baker. You got two men who are in high positions in Pharaoh's house. You got one that's a baker that makes the food. You got one that's a cupbearer that brings his wine or his beverages to drink. You know, and the cupbearer, you know, you can get a king poison through the cupbearer, and then the baker can put poison in the food. So these two men have very important responsibilities. So now, when you read Jasher, it shows that some flies was in the wine, and I think some kind of poison was in the bed, was in the bread. So Pharaoh had to decide who's trying to kill him. What's going on? So they both go to the captain of the guard's house. Now both of these men are in prison and thinking about their lives, because if one of them put Pharaoh's life in danger, then you got to go. So can you imagine the one sitting there who was innocent? You know, the cupbearer. You know, he innocent. So he's sitting there thinking, man, oh Lord, what's going on? So they're both on the bed, they down, they looking bad. Man, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Because Lord have mercy, I can't, I won't die. And so when Joseph comes in there, because of his faith and believing what Yah had told him, he was able to tell these men, hey, man, in 3 days, Pharaoh going to raise your head up. You're going to be able to serve him again. And so now the baker sees that the cupbearer's dream is favorable, so he responds and he tells him he's going to die. So there's a guilty one and an innocent one. And y'all speaking to him. Let him know that hey, you've been found out. You're going back where you got to go. You know, so and we see y'all's word come to pass from the interpretations. Then we see Pharaoh, because he's distraught. And when you read Jasher, it has many people coming to him, telling him lies. You know, Pharaoh gonna have $7. You know, he gonna go into war. This gonna happen. All this stuff gonna happen. You know, so it was important. So now Joseph comes in and tells this man his dream. It's very important. So that in the same situation when it comes to Solomon, you know, that was real, because then you got a woman who's lost her child. Imagine now, I can imagine, because we just can't throw the woman whose baby was dead away. We don't understand how she was really feeling, but her heart was not in the right place. She rolled over on her child while she was asleep, and she suffocated the baby, you know, and the other one didn't. But so she got up and stole that woman's baby. This mine. You know, she took her baby. That's a serious situation. That's like in today's time, kidnapping somebody's child. You know, even like now today's time in our hospitals, when mothers have babies, they put all kind of tags on them. They looking at everything over and over again. They looking. You know, the mother, can I get your name and date of birth? If you take a baby now and go out of the hospital, an alarm is gonna sound. Dee, because people take babies. It's theirs when it's not theirs. You know, so this woman took this woman's baby from her. And so he got a real situation that he has to deal with. So he wakes up from this dream. He realizes that it's only a dream, and he's faced with a situation of this, and he's able to give them. He's able to bring out to see whose child it is. So you know, so because he understood that that's the wisdom of the Most High, because he understood that a true mother only wants the best for her child, and only wants that child to live. And the one that the real mom, she said, "Well, go now. Go. It is fair." Because she said, because the real mother said, well, both of them be there, neither one of them have a baby. Oh, okay. Well, you ain't the real mama then. Because no mama just want her baby to die, or nobody their baby to die. Give her the baby. So that's an amazing thing, because that's we see the Most High using Solomon and giving him that wisdom. We're gonna read Acts 7, Isaiah, verses 9 through 16.
Now the patriarchs grew jealous of Joseph and sold him into slavery in Egypt. But Adonai was with him. He rescued him from all his troubles and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who appointed him chief administrator over Egypt and over all his household. Now there came a famine that caused much suffering throughout Egypt and Canaan. But when Yaakov heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent out fathers there the first time. Our fathers there the first time. The second time, Joseph revealed his identity to his brothers. And Joseph's family became known to Pharaoh. Joseph then sent for his father, Yaakov, and all his relatives, 75 people. And Yaakov went down to Egypt. There he died, as did our ancestors. Their bodies were removed from Shechem and buried in the tomb of Abraham. In the tomb Abraham had bought from the family of Hamor and Shechem for a certain sum of money.
So the patriarchs, we see some stuff coming to pass. The patriarchs drew jealous of Joseph. They grew jealous of Joseph, sold him into slavery. They was bringing the word of God to pass. God was using them to bring his word to pass. They didn't even know that the Most High was using them. He hears a dream, So if God gives you a dream, his dream is going to come to pass. They said that Joseph, they grew jealous of him, sold him into slavery. But Yah, Adonai, rescued him from all his trouble. He was with him. Rescued him from all his trouble, gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And then he appointed him chief administrator over Egypt and over all his household. Why? Because of the interpreting of their dream. So the principle is to know that Yah is with you. And he restores, he brings back. He restored Yosef back to his family. He brought to pass the word, and so far we see his brothers bowing down to him. He reconciled, brought his father back, gave him favor. So we got to know that Yah's word will come to pass in our life, and we don't get where we hang in there, and we'll see, and we act out on the word that he gives us, just like Solomon. So praise Yah for his word. This is the end of our Torah class. We're going to get ready to transition. In a minute, we're going to go begin our Shabbat worship. Again, happy Hanukkah to everybody. Pray that you all have been having a blessed Hanukkah so far. Praise Yah for his mercy. So we're going to pray. We're going to get ready to transition to our worship service. We ask you all to join us there also. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for your compassion. Thank you, Yah, for your mercy and your love and kindness. Thank you for being our strength. Yah, we ask you to help us to walk in your trust. That when you do speak to us, when you do reveal things to us, help us to walk it out. Help us not to have even the mindset of Reuben. Reuben told Yaakov, you can kill my own sons. Those are not leadership skills, Yah. But help us. But Judah put himself in a place and said, hey, I'll take the full responsibility if anything happens to your sons. Help us to have the mind to be true leaders, to put ourselves in the place of others and protection and not put ourselves above someone to want to cause them harm or want something to happen to them if something bad happens to someone else. But help us to have the right mindset of a leader. Help us to walk in trust. Help us to walk in obedience to your word. Help us, Yah, to continue to surrender ourselves to you and be obedient and love you and show our love to you through our obedience, through our trust in you, through what you say to us, Yah. We just thank you and we praise you for your mercy. Thank you, Yah, for your loving kindness and your goodness toward us. As we get ready to transition, Yah, we pray that you be with us as we begin to worship you in spirit and in truth, as we learn your word. So we thank you and we glorify you in Yeshua's name. Hallelujah. Shalom.